Lila loved quiet mornings. The sun streamed through the windows, painting the living room with warm golden light. She carefully hung fresh curtains she had bought the day before. Everything seemed calm and perfect. She felt a sense of peace she rarely experienced, especially in their busy neighborhood. Her wife, Mara, was in the kitchen making tea. The smell of ginger and lemon filled the air. Lila smiled as she watched Mara move gracefully, humming a soft tune. Just as Lila was placing the last curtain in its position, a sharp voice shattered the calm. "Open the door. I demand to come in now." Lila froze. The voice was angry, loud, and full of authority. She moved quickly to the window and looked outside. A woman in her 40s, with a frown that seemed permanent, was standing on their doorstep. She was waving her arms and holding a phone. Lila recognized her immediately. Everyone in the neighborhood quietly called her Karen. Karen had a reputation for being strict, controlling, and quick to complain about even the smallest issues. Lila felt her stomach tighten. "Mara, someone is outside. She looks very angry." Mara turned from the kitchen counter and wiped her hands on a towel. "Who is it?" she asked calmly. "That woman from the HOA," Lila said. "She is shouting and wants to come inside. She said she is calling the police." Mara took a deep breath. She was always calm in situations like this. "Let me handle it," she said. Before Lila could protest, Mara picked up the phone. She answered politely. "Hello?" Karen's voice came through, sharp and forceful. "Yes, this is Karen from the HOA. I am reporting a violation. You need to let me inside immediately. This is an official warning." Mara's voice was calm but firm. "I am sorry, but no one can enter our home without permission. Can you tell me what the problem is?" Karen's anger grew. "You do not understand. I have the authority to inspect every property in this neighborhood. You are breaking the rules, and I am calling the police right now." Lila watched as Mara stayed quiet for a moment, listening carefully. She could tell Mara was thinking through every word Karen was saying. Mara never lost her composure, and that made her presence powerful. "Please understand," Mara said softly. "We have maintained our property according to all HOA rules. There is no violation, and I cannot allow anyone to enter without our consent. You may contact the authorities and they can verify everything for themselves." Karen shouted again, demanding to be let in. She rattled the doorknob and pressed her face against the glass. Lila could feel her own heart beating faster. She had seen Karen act aggressively before, but never at their house. Within minutes, the faint sound of sirens grew louder. The police were on their way. Lila's eyes widened. "Oh no, the police are coming," she whispered. Mara stayed calm and placed the phone down, signaling Lila to step back. When the officers arrived, Karen immediately pointed at their house. "They are refusing to let me in. I want them held accountable," she said loudly. Mara opened the door slowly and greeted the officers politely. "Officers, thank you for coming. I understand there is a complaint, but I can assure you there is no violation. I am happy to explain." Karen looked shocked. She had expected the homeowner to be flustered or scared, not calm and confident. "No, you don't understand. I called 911. You must let me in now." The officers exchanged a look. "Ma'am, we need to know the reason for the complaint. We also need to ensure no laws are being broken," one officer said. Mara explained that their yard was in perfect condition and that HOA rules did not give anyone the right to enter their home without permission. She showed photos and cited the rules carefully. Karen became more frustrated as Mara remained calm and detailed. After listening for a few minutes, one officer sighed. "It seems there is no legal reason for you to enter this home forcibly. You cannot demand entry." Karen's face turned red with anger. She tried to argue, but the officers asked her for identification and ran her name. Mara watched quietly, staying calm. Karen's anger grew when she realized the officers were taking the situation seriously. "Ma'am, filing false reports and harassing residents is against the law," one officer explained. "You must comply or you may face arrest." Karen's eyes widened. She tried to protest, but the officers firmly informed her that her actions could lead to legal consequences. She continued shouting, refusing to calm down, so the officers had no choice but to escort her to the police car. Lila stepped back in shock. "She is being arrested?" she whispered. Mara nodded. "I did not do this to get her arrested. I simply stayed calm and explained the truth." The officers made the decision based on her actions. Neighbors came out of their homes quietly, watching the scene unfold. Some whispered to each other, smiling secretly. Karen had often caused tension in the neighborhood, and this situation was a rare moment of justice. Once Karen was taken away, Lila turned to Mara. "I cannot believe she actually got arrested. I thought this would be a long fight." Mara smiled softly. "Sometimes staying calm and knowing your rights is more powerful than arguing. We did the right thing by being polite and clear." Lila hugged her. "I am proud of you. You handled everything perfectly." Mara held her hand. "Now we can return to our home in peace. The rest will resolve itself." They returned to the living room and finished their tea, feeling a mix of relief and disbelief. Lila laughed quietly. "This is going to be a story we tell everyone. I cannot wait for our friends to hear what happened." Mara smiled. "Let us enjoy our calm for now. The story will take care of itself in the future." In that moment, Lila and Mara understood the power of patience, composure, and knowing one's rights. A situation that began with anger and threats had ended in justice and peace. They had proven that calm reasoning could overcome aggression, and that truth and patience always found a way to prevail. The neighborhood returned to its usual quiet rhythm. But whispers of Karen's arrest spread quickly. Some neighbors approached Mara and Lila to congratulate them. Others shook their heads in disbelief at Karen's actions. Lila and Mara smiled politely, keeping their focus on each other. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, the couple felt a new sense of security in their home. They knew that challenges could come at any time, but with patience and calmness they could face anything. That morning had been stressful, but it had also strengthened their bond. They had faced anger, threats, and intimidation, and they had come out stronger together. For Lila and Mara, this day would be remembered not just as a strange encounter, but as a moment when calm and clarity triumphed over chaos. They sipped their tea, looked out the window at their perfectly maintained yard, and knew that their home was safe. The story of Karen, the HOA, and the police would continue to be talked about, but inside their home, peace and quiet had returned. Lila smiled at Mara, and Mara smiled back. They had handled the impossible with grace, proving that courage sometimes comes in the form of patience and composure rather than confrontation. The morning after Karen's arrest, the neighborhood felt different. The air seemed lighter, as if a heavy weight had lifted. Mara and Lila enjoyed their breakfast quietly, watching the sun rise over their garden. They felt a strange mix of relief and curiosity about what would happen next. Soon a few neighbors came by. The first to visit was Mr. Allen, an older man who lived 2 houses down. He knocked gently, holding a small plate of freshly baked cookies. "Good morning," he said with a smile. "I just wanted to check if everything is okay. I heard about yesterday." Lila invited him in, and Mara poured him some tea. Mr. Allen shook his head, chuckling. "I cannot believe Karen got herself arrested. She has always been a problem, but this is something else. I am glad you two stayed calm." "That is the best way to handle her?" Lila nodded. "It was stressful, but Mara stayed calm the whole time. I just watched and learned." Mr. Allen smiled. "That is wisdom. Anger only makes things worse. You have handled this very well." More neighbors came by as word spread quickly. Some came to show support, while others came out of curiosity. Everyone wanted to hear the story directly from Mara and Lila. Mara remained polite and calm, explaining the events clearly. She described how Karen had refused to follow the rules, how she had called the police herself, and how the officers had dealt with the situation fairly. People listened attentively, and many nodded in understanding. Some admitted they had been afraid of Karen in the past. Her strict behavior and constant complaints had created tension in the community. Now, seeing that she had faced consequences for her actions, the neighbors felt a sense of relief. One of the neighbors, a young woman named Nina, spoke softly. "I have seen Karen upset many times. I thought she would cause more trouble. I am amazed that the police handled it so well." Mara replied calmly. "It is important to stay calm and explain things clearly. Anger does not solve problems. Respect and clarity do." The conversation shifted to neighborhood rules and responsibilities. People began discussing how to prevent similar situations in the future. Mara suggested that residents could review HOA rules together and make sure everyone understood them. Lila added that communication and patience could reduce misunderstandings. While the neighbors left slowly, Lila and Mara felt a sense of pride. Their home, their peace, and their rights had been defended without conflict. They knew, however, that Karen's reaction could continue to affect the neighborhood. A few hours later, Mara received a phone call. It was from the HOA board. Her heart remained calm, but she answered politely. "Good morning, this is Mara," she said. "Hello, Mara," said a woman's voice. "This is Mrs. Harrison from the HOA board. We need to discuss what happened with Karen yesterday." Mara listened carefully as Mrs. Harrison explained that the board was reviewing Karen's actions. They were concerned about her behavior, her false report, and her refusal to follow proper procedure. Mara remained calm, answering questions honestly and clearly. Mrs. Harrison paused. "We will take appropriate action. Thank you for your patience and for explaining everything. We want the neighborhood to be safe and peaceful." Mara smiled politely. "Thank you. I hope this will prevent similar incidents in the future." After the call, Lila asked, "Do you think Karen will try to cause more trouble?" Mara shook her head. "People like her often think they are always right. But after yesterday, she has learned that actions have consequences. Hopefully she will be more careful next time. If not, we know how to protect ourselves." Later that afternoon, Mara and Lila decided to take a walk around the neighborhood. They noticed how different everything felt. The street seemed quieter, the gardens brighter, and the neighbors friendlier. People smiled as they passed, acknowledging them politely. Mara and Lila felt a sense of community that had been hidden behind Karen's constant tension. As they walked, they saw a small group of children playing near the park. One of them waved and ran over to greet them. "Hi, Mrs. Mara." "Hi, Lila. Did you hear about Karen?" Lila laughed softly. "Yes, we heard. But we hope everyone is safe and happy now." The children nodded, excited to share their own observations. Mara smiled, feeling the importance of teaching the next generation about fairness, patience, and courage. She realized that this incident was not only about defending their home, but also about showing others how to respond to conflict. Returning home, Mara and Lila felt a sense of accomplishment. Their home felt safe, their relationship stronger, and their community slowly healing. Mara looked at Lila and said, "We cannot control other people, but we can control our actions. Calmness, clarity, and truth always matter." That evening, while preparing dinner, Lila reflected on the day. She realized that even though Karen's actions had caused stress, they had also brought the neighborhood closer together. People were talking, sharing stories, and understanding the importance of rules and respect. Lila smiled. "I think something good came out of a bad situation." Mara nodded. "Yes, this is a lesson for everyone. Conflict can teach us about patience, communication, and courage. We should remember that." The next morning, the police department called Mara to confirm that Karen's arrest had been processed. Mara answered politely, confirming the details. She realized that the legal system had worked as intended. Karen had faced consequences for her behavior, and the neighborhood could now move forward peacefully. Word spread quickly among the neighbors. Some were shocked, some were amused, and some felt relieved. Mara and Lila were careful not to boast, but continued to be friendly and polite with everyone. Their calm demeanor became an example for others to follow. Over the next few days, the HOA board held a meeting to review rules and educate residents about proper procedures. Mara attended the meeting, answering questions and providing insights. Her approach was clear, respectful, and helpful. The board appreciated her input, realizing that clear communication and fairness were essential to prevent conflicts like Karen's in the future. Meanwhile, Karen remained at home facing the consequences of her actions. Neighbors whispered about her situation, but no one gossiped loudly. Mara and Lila continued their daily routine, enjoying small moments of peace, reading books, gardening, and preparing meals together. Their home had become a safe haven, a place of calm amidst a world of chaos. One afternoon, Lila noticed a letter in the mailbox. It was from the HOA board, thanking them for their patience and cooperation. The letter praised their calm and thoughtful handling of the situation. Lila smiled and showed it to Mara. Mara read the letter carefully and said, "This is exactly what we hoped for. The neighborhood now understands that respect, patience, and communication are more powerful than anger." Lila hugged her. "I am so proud of us. We stayed calm and handled everything perfectly. This is a story we will remember forever." That evening, as the sun set, Lila and Mara sat on their porch. They watched the sky turn shades of orange and pink. The neighborhood was quiet and peaceful. The gardens glowed softly in the evening light. Mara turned to Lila and said, "This incident taught us something important. Life will have challenges, but calmness, patience, and truth always guide us through." Lila nodded, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. Yes, and we did it together. We faced anger and threats and came out stronger. As the stars began to appear in the sky, Mara and Lila felt content. Their home was safe, their community was learning, and they had proven that courage could take many forms. They had faced a difficult situation and emerged victorious without losing their kindness, patience, or peace of mind. The neighborhood slowly returned to its normal rhythm. But the story of Karen's actions and the calm response by Mara and Lila became a lesson for everyone. People learned that confrontation does not always require anger, and that the strongest response is often patience, clarity, and truth. Mara and Lila went inside, feeling confident that their home would remain a place of peace. They knew that challenges might come again, but they were prepared to face them together, calmly and wisely. They had turned a moment of conflict into a lesson for themselves and their community, showing that even the most stressful situations could be handled with grace. A week had passed since Karen's arrest. The neighborhood was slowly returning to its usual rhythm, but subtle tension lingered in the air. People whispered quietly when passing by Lila and Mara's home, curious about what would happen next. Mara and Lila carried on with their lives as usual, tending to their garden, preparing meals together, and enjoying quiet evenings. Their calm presence seemed to reassure the neighbors. One afternoon, Mara noticed Karen standing near the end of the street, speaking to a group of neighbors. She was pointing at Lila and Mara's house and speaking in a loud, angry voice. Mara's first instinct was to feel worry, but she took a deep breath and reminded herself that calmness was the best response. Lila joined her on the porch, noticing Karen's behavior. "Do you think she is trying to gather support against us?" Lila asked. Mara nodded slowly. "It seems that way, but she cannot force anyone to act unfairly. People will see the truth if we remain calm and honest." Later that day, Mara and Lila decided to take a walk through the neighborhood to greet neighbors and reinforce their friendly presence. They wanted to make sure the community understood their intentions were peaceful. As they walked, several neighbors approached them. "Hello, Mara." "Hello, Lila," said Mr. Allen, smiling. "We saw Karen talking to a few people." "Do not worry. We trust you both. Your actions have been fair and calm. That is more important than anything she says." Lila felt comforted by his words. "Thank you, Mr. Allen. It is good to know the neighborhood understands." Mrs. Harrison, a member of the HOA board, walked up as well. "We appreciate how you handled everything," she said. "Karen's behavior does not reflect the rules or the spirit of our community." "You have set a strong example." Mara nodded politely. "Thank you. I hope this helps prevent future misunderstandings. Communication and patience are key." The couple continued their walk, noticing that even some of the younger neighbors seemed curious but respectful. Children waved as they passed, and adults smiled politely. Mara realized that these simple gestures helped reduce tension. Small actions like greetings and friendly conversation reinforced the sense of community. Back at home, Mara and Lila discussed possible ways to address Karen's attempts to influence others. Mara suggested hosting a small neighborhood gathering. "It will give everyone a chance to meet, talk, and understand each other," she explained. Lila agreed. "We can share our story calmly and clearly and encourage people to communicate with each other directly, rather than letting misunderstandings grow." They began preparing invitations. Mara wrote a short note explaining the purpose of the gathering, emphasizing friendship, community, and understanding. Lila helped decorate the garden with simple flowers and a few chairs for neighbors to sit and talk. On the day of the gathering, neighbors began arriving slowly. Some were curious about the situation with Karen, while others came simply to enjoy a friendly event. Mara and Lila greeted each person warmly, offering tea, snacks, and smiles. As everyone settled, Mara stood to address the group. "Thank you all for coming," she began. "We wanted to host this gathering to strengthen our community. Recently, there was a situation with one neighbor, but our goal is to focus on understanding, communication, and friendship. Misunderstandings can happen, but the best way to resolve them is calmly and respectfully." People listened attentively. Some nodded, appreciating her words. Lila added, "We are grateful for your support. We hope that by talking and spending time together, we can prevent conflicts and make our neighborhood even stronger." During the gathering, several neighbors shared their experiences. Many admitted they had been frustrated by Karen's behavior in the past. Some shared stories of minor complaints or unnecessary arguments. Mara and Lila listened politely, thanking each person for their honesty. Mr. Allen spoke up. It is important to recognize that one person's anger does not define a community. We all have the choice to act with kindness, patience, and fairness. Mara and Lila have shown us how to handle conflict calmly, and that is an example we should follow. The conversation shifted to neighborhood plans. Ideas for small projects like a community garden, a neighborhood watch, and shared events were discussed. Mara and Lila helped facilitate, making sure everyone's voice was heard. The atmosphere became cheerful, filled with laughter and friendly conversation. Even though Karen's attempts to influence others still existed in the background, her power to create fear and tension weakened. People realized that truth, calm behavior, and respect were stronger than anger and intimidation. After the gathering, Mara and Lila sat in their garden, feeling satisfied. Lila said, "I never thought a simple gathering could have such an impact. People are talking, sharing, and understanding each other." "It is wonderful," Mara smiled. "Yes, sometimes the best response to aggression is not conflict but connection. We cannot control Karen, but we can build positive relationships that outweigh her influence." The next day, Lila noticed a few children playing near the park, waving at them. Their laughter reminded her of how important a peaceful neighborhood could be for everyone. Mara suggested organizing small activities for children, like gardening or story sessions. Lila agreed, thinking it would help strengthen community bonds. Over the next few weeks, Mara and Lila continued their efforts. They hosted small tea sessions, helped neighbors with small tasks, and encouraged open communication. People began to feel more connected and supportive of one another. Karen continued to complain occasionally, but her attempts to create tension had little effect. The neighborhood had grown stronger and more resilient. One afternoon, Mara received a letter from the HOA board. They thanked her and Lila for their contributions to improving the community. They also informed her that Karen had received formal warnings and would need to attend training sessions on respectful communication. Mara felt relieved. The HOA was taking steps to prevent further issues and promote fairness. Lila read the letter with a smile. This shows that calm, respectful actions can influence even official organizations. "We made a real difference," Mara nodded. "Yes, this situation taught us and the neighborhood a valuable lesson. Conflict can be an opportunity to build understanding, not division." The following weekend, Mara and Lila organized a small garden project with neighbors. Everyone contributed plants, tools, and ideas. The garden became a symbol of cooperation and friendship. Karen watched from her house, but no one paid attention to her attempts to interfere. Mara and Lila had shown that positive actions and unity could overcome negativity. As the garden flourished, so did the sense of community. Neighbors began greeting each other more often, helping with small tasks and sharing stories. Mara and Lila felt proud of the neighborhood they had helped strengthen. Their calm and respectful actions had not only protected their home, but had inspired others to act with fairness and kindness. One evening, Mara and Lila sat on their porch, watching the sunset. The neighborhood was quiet, filled with soft voices of people enjoying time together. Mara turned to Lila. "This has been a challenging few weeks, but we have achieved something wonderful. We have created a peaceful, connected community." Lila nodded. "Yes, and we did it without anger or confrontation. That is something to be proud of." As darkness fell, the stars appeared in the sky. Mara and Lila felt a sense of accomplishment and calm. The story of Karen's actions and the neighborhood's response had transformed from conflict to growth. They knew that challenges might come again, but with patience, clarity, and kindness, they could overcome anything together. The week ended with laughter, friendship, and the soft glow of evening lights. Mara and Lila felt content. Their home remained safe, their relationship strong, and their neighborhood united. They had turned a difficult situation into an opportunity for growth, teaching everyone that calmness, communication, and truth were the strongest tools in any conflict. The neighborhood had grown calmer over the past few weeks, but Mara and Lila knew that Karen's anger had not disappeared completely. Mara often reminded Lila that patience and preparation were the best ways to handle any situation. They continued their daily routines, tending to the garden, cooking meals together, and greeting neighbors warmly. Their calm demeanor had inspired others, and the neighborhood seemed more connected than ever. One morning, As Mara watered the flowers in the garden, she noticed Karen pacing near the sidewalk, muttering angrily to herself. Mara stayed calm, observing from a distance. "She is thinking of a new plan," Mara said softly. Lila frowned. "Do you think she will cause more trouble?" Mara shook her head. "We cannot control her actions, but we can control ours. If we remain calm and respectful, nothing she does can harm us. We just need to stay aware and ready." Later that day, Karen approached one of the younger neighbors, a man named Sam, and tried to convince him to file a complaint about Mara and Lila's garden. Sam looked uncomfortable but politely refused. "I appreciate your concern, Karen, but I have seen that Mara and Lila follow the rules and treat everyone fairly," he said. Karen scowled, realizing her influence was limited. Mara and Lila had built strong relationships with the neighbors and the community supported them. Karen could no longer create fear or tension effectively. Mara noticed Sam speaking to other neighbors and quietly praised him for his honesty. "It is important to stand by the truth and support fairness," Mara said. Lila nodded, feeling proud of how their calm approach was making a difference. A few days later, Mara received a message from Mrs. Harrison of the HOA board. The board had scheduled a neighborhood meeting to discuss new community guidelines and to encourage positive behavior among all residents. Mara and Lila were invited to participate. At the meeting, the room was filled with neighbors. Everyone seemed curious but attentive. Mara spoke first. "Thank you all for attending," she began. "Our goal today is to create a community where everyone feels safe, respected, and supported. Recent events have shown us the importance of clear communication and understanding. We hope to prevent future conflicts by working together." Neighbors listened carefully as Mara explained how calmness, patience, and honesty had helped her and Lila handle Karen's complaints. She emphasized that anger and intimidation never solved problems, and that respectful dialogue was the key to building a strong community. Lila added, "We are grateful for everyone's support. The neighborhood works best when we listen to each other and act with kindness. Misunderstandings can happen, but we can resolve them without conflict." Several neighbors shared their own stories of small disagreements and how they had been resolved by talking openly. The atmosphere in the room became positive and cooperative. Even Karen was present, though she remained quiet and visibly frustrated. Mara continued, "We hope that everyone here will encourage fair and respectful behavior. It is important to remember that our actions affect the community, and we all have a responsibility to support one another." Karen tried to speak, but the board reminded her that the focus of the meeting was on cooperation and improvement. She could not dominate the conversation, and her voice was soon drowned out by polite discussions and shared ideas. Mara and Lila maintained calm expressions, refusing to react to Karen's visible irritation. After the meeting, Mara and Lila returned home and reflected on the events. Lila said, "It was impressive how everyone listened and worked together. Even Karen could not disrupt the meeting." Mara nodded. "Yes, this is the result of patience, preparation, and community support. By staying calm and respectful, we created an environment where fairness is stronger than anger." The following weekend, Mara and Lila organized a neighborhood cleanup. They invited everyone to participate in planting flowers, removing litter, and tidying common areas. The event was well received. Neighbors laughed, shared stories, and worked together. Karen watched from a distance but did not approach. Her attempts to cause disruption were no longer effective. As they worked, Mara spoke to Lila quietly. "Community events like this strengthen bonds. People see the benefits of cooperation and fairness. It makes it harder for anyone to create conflict." Lila smiled. "It feels good to see everyone enjoying themselves. Even children are learning about teamwork and responsibility." By the end of the day, the neighborhood looked beautiful. The streets were cleaner, gardens brighter, and the air filled with laughter. Mara and Lila felt proud of the positive changes. The sense of unity and respect had grown stronger, making their community safer and happier. Later that evening, Mara received a phone call from the local police department. Karen had called again, claiming a minor issue that did not exist. Mara listened politely and calmly explained the situation. The officers understood immediately and advised Karen on proper procedures. Mara's calm response ensured that the issue was resolved quickly and peacefully. Lila shook her head. "She keeps trying, but it never works." Mara smiled. Yes, when actions are guided by fairness and truth, negativity cannot succeed. Karen has little influence now because the neighborhood sees the truth. The next few days were peaceful. Mara and Lila continued their routines, tending the garden, reading together, and sharing meals with neighbors. The community had grown closer, and even small gestures, like greetings and friendly conversations, created a sense of warmth and connection. One afternoon, Mara noticed a few children playing near the park, smiling and laughing. She suggested organizing a small story session for them. Lila agreed, and they invited a few neighbors to join. The event was cheerful and filled with learning, cooperation, and joy. Children learned about respect, honesty, and friendship through stories and activities. Karen watched quietly from her porch, but no one paid attention. Mara and Lila's calm actions and positive influence had reduced her ability to create tension. The community no longer feared her anger, and her attempts to interfere had little effect. Mara and Lila reflected on the past weeks. "We have turned a difficult situation into an opportunity," Mara said. "Our calm approach, honesty, and patience have strengthened the neighborhood and protected our home." Lila nodded. "It is amazing to see the changes. People are smiling, helping each other, and learning from our actions. Even Karen cannot stop that." By the end of the week, the neighborhood felt like a new place. The garden project and community events had created bonds that could not be broken by anger or intimidation. Mara and Lila continued to lead by example, demonstrating that fairness, respect, and calmness were stronger than any conflict. One evening, as the sun set, Mara and Lila sat on their porch. The streets were quiet, the air fresh, and the garden looked beautiful. Mara turned to Lila. "We have achieved something wonderful. Not only did we protect our home, but we also helped create a neighborhood that values cooperation and kindness." Lila smiled, feeling a deep sense of pride. "Yes, and we did it together. Calmness and patience can make a real difference." As stars appeared in the sky, Mara and Lila felt content. The story of Karen, the HOA, and the neighborhood's growth had transformed from conflict to a lesson in community, fairness, and respect. They knew challenges might come again, but with patience, truth, and unity, they could handle anything together. The neighborhood had become stronger, more connected, and more resilient. Mara and Lila's calm and thoughtful actions had created a lasting impact. The garden, the community events, and the shared respect among neighbors were symbols of the strength that comes from understanding, communication, and fairness. Karen's attempts to disrupt peace had failed, and the community learned that anger and intimidation could not overcome honesty, patience, and cooperation. Mara and Lila's home remained a safe haven, a place of calm and love, surrounded by neighbors who valued fairness and friendship. The couple sat together, enjoying the warm evening air. They felt proud of what they had accomplished and confident in their ability to face the future. Calmness, patience, and truth had triumphed over anger, and the neighborhood was stronger for it. Weeks had passed since Karen's first attempt to force her way into Mara and Lila's home. The neighborhood had grown calmer and more connected. Mara and Lila continued their routines, tending to their garden, hosting small gatherings, and supporting neighbors whenever needed. Their calm, patient approach had strengthened the community and reduced the influence of Karen's anger. One morning, Mara noticed Karen standing at the end of the street, talking to a few neighbors again. Mara remained calm and continued watering the flowers in her garden. Lila came outside and stood beside her. "She is trying something again," Lila said quietly. Mara nodded. "It looks like it, but she cannot create conflict here anymore. We have built trust and respect in this neighborhood. Her anger cannot break that." Karen approached a neighbor and tried to convince them that Mara and Lila were causing problems. The neighbor, a young woman named Sarah, listened politely but shook her head. "I have seen Mara and Lila work hard for this neighborhood," Sarah said. "They are fair and kind. I will not act against them." Karen scowled and walked away, muttering under her breath. Her power to influence the community had weakened significantly. Mara and Lila watched quietly, satisfied that their calm and honest approach had worked. Later that day, Mara and Lila received an invitation from the HOA board to participate in a neighborhood celebration. The board wanted to honor residents who had contributed positively to the community. Mara and Lila agreed, feeling that this would encourage everyone to continue acting with fairness and kindness. At the celebration, The room was filled with laughter and chatter. Neighbors gathered to share stories, enjoy snacks, and participate in small games. Mara and Lila were greeted warmly by everyone. Even neighbors who had been unsure about the situation with Karen approached them to express support and gratitude. Mrs. Harrison, a member of the HOA board, spoke to the crowd. Today we celebrate community, respect, and cooperation. Mara and Lila have shown us how to handle conflict with patience, fairness, and calmness. Their actions have helped strengthen our neighborhood. The room erupted in polite applause. Mara and Lila smiled, feeling grateful for the recognition. Lila whispered, "It is wonderful to see everyone supporting each other. This is what community should be." Mara nodded. "Yes, our goal was never recognition, but it is nice to see that our calm and honest approach made a difference." During the event, neighbors shared their experiences of small conflicts and how they had resolved them through communication and patience. Children played together, laughing and learning about teamwork and respect. Mara and Lila encouraged these positive interactions, showing everyone that cooperation could replace fear and tension. Karen tried to approach the celebration but was politely reminded by the board that her disruptive behavior was not welcome. She remained outside, watching but unable to interfere. Mara and Lila paid no attention to her, focusing on supporting the community instead. As the celebration continued, Mara noticed that neighbors were talking and laughing freely. The community had begun to see that unity, fairness, and calmness were stronger than anger and intimidation. Karen's influence was no longer significant, and her attempts to disrupt peace had failed. After the celebration, Mara and Lila returned home and reflected on the past few weeks. Lila said, "It is amazing how much has changed. The neighborhood feels happy, safe, and connected." Mara smiled. "Yes, this situation taught us and our neighbors a valuable lesson. Anger and threats cannot overcome honesty, patience, and cooperation. We have created a community that values fairness and friendship." The next morning, Mara and Lila walked through the neighborhood. They noticed that neighbors greeted each other warmly and helped one another with small tasks. Even the children seemed more confident and respectful. Mara realized that the positive changes were becoming a lasting part of the community. While walking, they passed Karen's house. She was sitting on her porch watching quietly. Mara and Lila smiled politely and waved. Karen did not respond, clearly frustrated that her attempts to create conflict were ineffective. Mara and Lila continued their walk, feeling confident in the strength of the community they had helped build. Back at home, Mara suggested hosting a small gardening workshop for the neighbors. Lila agreed, thinking it would help bring everyone together and teach children about responsibility and cooperation. They spent the next few days preparing materials, planting examples, and creating a welcoming space. On the day of the workshop, neighbors arrived with enthusiasm. Mara and Lila guided them through planting flowers, watering techniques, and small garden maintenance tasks. Children learned how to care for plants while adults shared tips and stories. The event strengthened connections and encouraged collaboration. Karen remained on her porch watching silently, unable to disrupt the harmony. After the workshop, Mara and Lila reflected on their success. Lila said, "It is wonderful to see everyone working together and enjoying themselves. Even children are learning valuable lessons about respect and cooperation." Mara nodded. "Yes, these small actions make a big difference. We cannot control everyone, but we can create an environment where fairness and kindness are stronger than anger." Over the following weeks, the neighborhood continued to thrive. Mara and Lila organized small events, supported neighbors with projects, and maintained friendly connections with everyone. The community had learned that calm, respectful behavior was the key to handling conflicts effectively. Karen's attempts to interfere became less frequent. She realized that anger and intimidation no longer held power in the neighborhood. Mara and Lila had shown that patience, honesty, and fairness could protect their home and inspire others. One evening, Mara and Lila sat on their porch, watching the neighborhood glow in the soft light of sunset. Children played safely, neighbors smiled and waved, and the air was filled with laughter. Mara turned to Lila. "We have achieved something wonderful. Not only have we protected our home, but we have helped create a neighborhood that values cooperation, respect, and kindness." Lila smiled. "Yes, it is amazing to see how calmness and patience can change everything. Even Karen cannot undo the good we have done." As darkness fell and stars appeared in the sky, Mara and Lila felt a deep sense of peace. Their home remained a safe and loving space, surrounded by neighbors who valued fairness and friendship. The community had grown stronger, united by shared experiences and positive actions. Mara reflected on the journey. Challenges will always come, but we have learned that calmness, honesty, and patience are the most powerful tools. Conflict cannot succeed when people act with respect and truth. Lila nodded. We have built something lasting. The neighborhood is happier, stronger, and safer. We can face anything together. The couple continued to watch the quiet streets, feeling proud of their accomplishments. The story of Karen, the HOA, and the neighborhood's growth had reached a satisfying conclusion. Mara and Lila's calm, thoughtful actions had transformed a tense situation into a lasting lesson for the entire community. Neighbors continued to greet each other, children played, and gardens flourished. The sense of unity, respect, and friendship was stronger than ever. Mara and Lila knew that their efforts had created a positive legacy. Karen remained a distant presence, unable to interfere with the neighborhood's harmony. Her anger and attempts to disrupt peace had been neutralized by Mara and Lila's patience, fairness, and calmness. The community had learned that respect, honesty, and cooperation were stronger than fear, intimidation, or anger. As Mara and Lila prepared for the night, they felt content and grateful. Their home was safe, their community was thriving, and their relationship had grown even stronger through the challenges they had faced together. They had turned conflict into opportunity, anger into understanding, and tension into cooperation. The neighborhood had become a place of learning, support, and friendship. Mara and Lila's example had inspired everyone to act with fairness, patience, and kindness. Karen's attempts to create conflict had failed, and the community had emerged stronger than ever. Mara held Lila's hand and said, "We have done something meaningful. Our calmness and honesty have created a lasting impact. This neighborhood will continue to thrive because of the choices we made." Lila smiled. "Yes, and we did it together. That is the most important part." As they turned off the lights and prepared for sleep, Mara and Lila felt a sense of accomplishment and peace. The story of conflict, patience, and community had reached its conclusion. They knew that future challenges might come, but with fairness, calmness, and unity, they could overcome anything. The neighborhood continued to flourish. Children learned important lessons and neighbors supported each other. Mara and Lila's home remained a safe haven, a place of love, respect, and calm. Their actions had created a lasting example, proving that honesty, patience, and kindness could overcome anger and conflict. And so, the community thrived, stronger and more connected than ever. Mara and Lila had turned a tense situation into a story of hope, courage, and unity. The lesson was clear. Calmness, fairness, and patience could protect a home, inspire a community, and create lasting peace.